Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and today I get to compare two of the most popular compact crossovers, the 2025 Mazda CX-5 and the Toyota RAV4, specifically my Toyota RAV4, which is actually a hybrid, but there's going to be a lot that we talk about between comparing these two very popular compact crossovers. In fact, they're both of these brands' best-selling vehicles. They're both sold globally. These two examples specifically were both assembled in Japan. They're both top safety picks. And they both have a lot of other commonalities, but there's an equal amount of differences. There's a lot of variation between these, and there's a reason why so many people buy each one over the other. So today we're going to talk about all of that, and if you get anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below, subscribe if you haven't already, and huge thanks to the Goody Motor Group in Southern Idaho and Alaska for letting me borrow the CX-5 for the day and comparing it to my own RAV4. So with that said, let's get right into this review. And as we go throughout this video, I'm going to show you everything from the front to the back and everything else in between. But first off, we really need to distinguish what we're talking about and which models are these. This Toyota RAV4 is a hybrid. It is a hybrid SE. MSRP is around $38,000 and some change with the options that it has. It is in Sky Silver Metallic, which is one of my favorite colors. But then the Mazda, this is a Premium Plus. It's not a hybrid, so it also MSRPs for around $37,000, $38,000, depending on how many options you load onto it. And it is in the most infamous colors, for Mazda anyways, Soul Red Crystal Metallic, which looks absolutely fantastic, especially on kind of an overcast, cloudy day like today. But these vehicles, while they both have a 2.5-liter engine, no matter whether it's a hybrid in the RAV4's case, or it's a turbo in the Mazda's case, they're both a 2.5-liter displacement engine. If you don't want the hybrid, you're going to get an 8-speed automatic transmission paired with your RAV4. And if you go turbo or non-turbo, the Mazda still has a very reliable old-school 6-speed automatic. But these vehicles do have a few pros over each other. Toyota is the biggest automaker in the world, so there's going to be more dealerships, more ways to service your vehicle. It's a very proven platform. In fact, this Toyota model selling about 1 million units globally, or 400,000 in the United States, completely outsells the Mazda. Although because these are both global platforms, there are millions of both of these vehicles on the road globally. The Mazda might have better fit and finish. For the price point, you're going to get a little bit nicer interior. Everything just feels tighter, more buttoned down, and it does drive a little bit more sporty. But the Toyota, which is known for reliability and resale value, once the warranty ends, once you're owning these vehicles 10, 15, 20 years from now, that might be the better bet. There's going to be pros and cons to each of these vehicles, but they would not be the best seller for both of these automakers in Japan if it wasn't for the quality and the value that you get from each of them. So they're both great options. So if we start with the Mazda, this again has a 6-speed automatic transmission and a 2.5-liter Skyactiv G engine. This 2025 model year actually does have cylinder deactivation. So at certain speeds, at certain RPMs, it can shut down 2 of the 4 cylinders. If you do opt for a turbo model, you don't get cylinder deactivation. But this puppy, it purrs out about 187 horsepower, a similar amount of torque, and if you do go with the turbo, on regular octane fuel, it's about 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. But if you do feed it some premium 91 octane or higher, it's all the way up to 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. I actually have a 0 to 60 comparison video comparing this CX-5 with the turbo to a CX-30 with the same engine to a CX-50 with the same engine, and the results are pretty interesting. But overall, for being transversely mounted, for being a front-wheel drive type of setup, you can see the alternator and the serpentine belt right down there on the passenger side. You can see you have your reservoirs on the periphery. You have what looks like a fuse box, the battery, the induction, the intake side right here, the exhaust side in the back by the miniature heat shield, and that's where your turbo would sit if you have the turbo model. Overall, very competent, very reliable engine. It actually sounds pretty good. 0 to 60 on these in my area at almost a mile of sea level altitude equivalent, it does anywhere from like a 9 to an 11 seconds 0 to 60 if it's a non-turbo. And then this is the A25A Atkinson cycle direct injection and port injection, so it's not going to get some clogged up intake valves. It has the induction on the front of the engine again, the exhaust on the back of the engine. Just like the Mazda, the reservoirs are on the periphery. The battery is not actually that. The battery is actually in the back on the passenger side next to the spare tire. Induction, fuse box. But the hybrids do not have a serpentine belt. The non-hybrids, of course, have a serpentine belt. So this has a few fewer maintenance items, no alternator, no starter, and it has an electronic AC compressor. I would say both of these vehicles have quite a bit of room under the hood to work on them, especially where they are transversely mounted, and you have the 4 cylinders going from side to side. But I would say this only has a 50 horsepower electric motor in the rear. I don't think that this all-wheel drive system is nearly as competent as the Mazda's. That does have an actual drive shaft that rotates while you're driving. It's mechanically connected, and I've driven a few of these in the winter. I have some driving reviews messing around with them in the snow, and I think this does a really good job. Better than the Toyota, but the Toyota, this one's gonna get a lot better MPG. The Mazda was rated for 26 city, 30 on the highway with cylinder deactivation. This one is rated for 41 in town, 39 on the highway, and I can tell you it actually gets those numbers. And because these are the compact crossover class of vehicle, which is about a half-foot variation between subcompact to compact to midsize to full-size unibody crossover, these are both very similarly sized, even though they do look a little bit different in their design language. The RAV4 actually is kind of angular, kind of aggressive looking. The CX-5, which has been around since I think this generation around 2016 or 2017, it still is very curvy, but hey, it ages really well. So these are both about 15 feet long, roughly 6 feet wide, and about 5.5 feet tall. They both have an 8.8 foot wheelbase. The Toyota weighs around 3,400 to 3,700 pounds, basically just depending on if it's a hybrid or non-hybrid. The Mazda weighs around 3,300 to 3,900 pounds, depending on if it's turboed, and then if it's a base model without the turbo, or if it's a loaded out heavy turbo with all the extra creature comforts. These both have roughly 8 inches of ground clearance. They can do full circles in 36 feet, and the payload capacity on the RAV4 outdoes the Mazda. It can carry 900 pounds worth of people and your favorite stuff, whereas the Mazda has a measly 850 pounds, which honestly, those two numbers are basically what all the compact crossovers are these days. I'm very curious to see which power liftgate opens up faster, so I have the remotes to each of these, and we are going to push the buttons at the same time, and we're going to see what happens in 3, 2, 1. All right, maybe the Toyota by just a hair. So we'll start back here. I do have an average crate with some emergency tools back here and a jacket in mine. But back here, you actually have 37 cubic feet of room, which in person, it really doesn't feel like it looks like it's any bigger than the other compact crossovers that have around 30, but apparently it's 37 cubic feet. There is a spare tire under here. It is just a temporary. And then you have your tire changing tools as well, and everything else that you need. It's not overly insulated down here though. You have a little bit of storage on the passenger side, LED light, 12 volt. You have the privacy shade, but it doesn't have bag clips. It doesn't have handles to drop the seat. It doesn't have anything else like that. But when you do drop both seats, you actually have 70 cubic feet of room, and it looks like it's power shocks on both sides, so that's pretty cool. Otherwise, you have handles to lower it down if you have a non-power liftgate, and then just the lower button right there, but there's no lock and lower button. So if we come over to the Mazda, this has about 29 cubic feet of room, but honestly, it really doesn't look, at least in my opinion, like it's missing about 8 cubic feet or about a quarter more storage room. It looks very similar. But on the sides, you have a handle to drop the seat, which is really handy. You have some ventilation, it looks like. You have some plugins right there. You have a little bit of storage. You could probably remove those on the sides behind the wheel wells. You have more vents and more drop downs. What's cool about this is you can actually drop the middle seat independently. So if you have skis, a snowboard, some 2x4s, anything like that, that's very handy. Otherwise, down here, you should have the subwoofer and the temporary spare tire. Otherwise, it looks about the same as what you get on the Toyota. And then up here, you still just have the lower button, and then you have a handle if it's a non-power liftgate model. When the seats are all the way down, though, you have 59 cubic feet of room, which is about 11 fewer cubic feet than you get on the RAV4. The next thing to talk about are the wheels, and I actually think the wheels on both of these vehicles look really good. And I often get asked, how do 18 and 19-inch wheels ride compared to 17s that are usually found on the base model? And honestly, guys, neither of these are off-road capable vehicles. Maybe some very, very light soft-roading to get you to the trailhead. But I think on city streets, if the road's paved, or even if it's a little bit gravelly, I don't think you're going to notice a big difference between a 17 to a 19, because you still have a couple inches of sidewall, and I think that the suspension really absorbs a lot of the impact. So unless you're doing some heavy-duty off-roading stuff that these vehicles are not designed for, I don't think you're gonna feel the limits of the wheels just daily driving it on the street, because if they were that harsh, if they were that rough, I don't think the automakers would be putting these on family vehicles. But this is a 225 5519, so it's a really good looking, big, kind of grayed out metallic-y wheel. It's a Toyo tire. And how much tread does it have? Right around 10-30 seconds. This is a Toyo wheel, so I do think this is probably a higher end tire than what I actually have on my Toyota, which is a Duratec. Probably something I'll be changing out pretty soon once I can really drive on some snow, not just some slush, and I can see where its limits are. But this is a 225 as well for the width. It's a 60 sidewall, so you have a tiny bit more sidewall, and then you have an 18-inch wheel. And it has maybe 9 to 10, 30 seconds. But at this point, I have 13 or 1400 miles on my car. And something that these automakers do really well is they put the gas door on the driver's side, which is just more convenient in my opinion. You don't have to go all the way around the vehicle. So mine locks. You do have to push a button on the inside to open it up. It's a 14.5 gallon tank. This is rated again for about 39 highway, 41 in city, but around town I can actually get up to 50 miles per gallon if I'm driving it very granny-like. And at interstate speed at 80 miles an hour, it's anywhere from 30 mpg to 34. At highway speed, though, I would say it is around 36 to 37. The Mazda, the gas door should have locked. I actually locked and hunked the vehicle a couple minutes ago. You can see that the mirror is locked, so in just a second I'll try the gas door out. But this with cylinder deactivation is rated for 26 city, 30 on the highway. It has a slightly larger 15 gallon tank. So its max road trip and range is up to 450 miles. So you're paying an extra half gallon of gas on this one compared to the non-hybrid. And then you're also gonna get, 100 miles less of range. If you do decide to get the non-hybrid RAV4, that is somehow actually rated up to 35 on the highway. So compared to 30 on the highway. So either way, the Toyota is gonna be more economical. And the 4-cylinder non-hybrid Toyota doesn't have cylinder deactivation. So now let's see if the gas door opens up. And it is locked. So the bums, you're not gonna have to worry about siphoning your fuel. But now that I think we've talked about these cars enough, let's hop inside where you are actually gonna be spending the most time. Right off the bat, there's a little bit of chrome on the front of this Premium Plus. You can see all the parking sensors on the front. This does have 360-degree cameras, which are really nice. Bright LED headlights. There are not really any roof rails on this one though. You do have turn signals on the mirror. You can see the 360-degree cam right there. The paint looks fantastic. You do have proximity key features to lock and unlock, and they work very fast. I actually really like the system. And then you have basically a chromed out hockey stick going to the back of the vehicle. But when you open up the door panel, the Mazdas, fit and finish, quality materials, they're usually gonna be a little bit nicer than most of the other compact crossover brands. This is really nice. There's a variety of materials. You have the Bose speakers. All-weather mats are now installed. You have memory seats. They are heated. They are powered. You have lumbar support. You have some pedals. You have the gas door. Actually, I'm sorry guys, this has a gas door as well. Why do I keep forgetting that the CX-5 has that and that the CX-50 just locks it unless it's a hybrid? Anyways, here are your options. You can turn on the 360-degree camera right there. This also has start-stop technology. And then this is your seat, again, with pretty decent bolstering. I think the CX-5 seats are a lot more comfy than the CX-50, and then you have a baby-sized sunroof up top. But when you hop inside of this vehicle, and you fire it up, it roars to life. This SkyActiv engine actually sounds really good. Visibility in neither of these cars is class leading. The windows are kind of small, especially if you have big occupants in the back seat. They're gonna kind of block off the rear view mirror. Looking back, you can see there's just not a ton of room in the compact crossover class of vehicle. But it's a really nice place to be. You do have paddle shifters for the 6 speeds on the back. You can go through info and actually get a pretty good amount of information. But these gauges look timeless. The infotainment screen doesn't impede your vision. It's not big and bold, blocking, everything in your way, which when these are out of date and about 6 months after the vehicles come out, because automakers don't make very good infotainment systems, you don't want a big, giant, out-of-date screen. You want a nice little compact one that can easily hook up to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You even have heads-up display on this one. Ventilation, climate controls, heated steering wheel, ventilated seats. You have the plug-in, you have the wireless charger that's sloped down so your phone doesn't climb out. Check out this 360-degree camera. Trajectory lines do move with the wheel, and that is seriously very nice, and something I wish my specific Toyota had. Then you have the drive modes. You have sport, normal, and off-road. When you're driving around in sport, it basically downshifts the transmission gear, so you're just more rev happy, you're ready to rev it out and to make a little bit more power. You have cup holders, you have the Scully dial, you have electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold, and then your volume knob. When you hold this down, the screen will turn off, which is kind of a neat feature. And then you have a lifty tray, some more plugins, and there's a small-ish size center console. Up top, you have garage door openers, auto-dimming mirrors, you have the manual sunshade, and then the controls to tilt or to slide. And do these push? Ooh, they are just incandescent for 40 grand or 37 grand. I was hoping they'd be LEDs. That one barely even lights up. Come on, Mazda. You can do better than that. But let's hop out of this and into the Toyota. I'm a little bit biased towards silver and black, but I do think that the front fascia on my RAV4 looks really good. And it doesn't have all the same safety sensors on the front that this one has, or the 360-degree camera, but it still has everything needed to make it a top safety pick. Mine doesn't necessarily have the hockey stick, but it still has some chrome around it. Kind of an interesting accent, and then it has black roof rails, black horizontal accent right there on the rear quarter, and you do have proximity key features right there, blind spot monitoring, turn signals. When you open it up, and mine has 35% window tint for any of you guys wondering, the door panel, it looks good. It's black. It's not as nice as the Mazda, but I think it's going to age really well. There's not really a whole lot to scratch up. I do like the big handle here. All-weather mats, pedals, gas door, hood release, options right there, heated seats as well. You have some storage, blue stitching, lighting stock. Mine just has cloth seats, but they are heated, and the heat does work pretty good, but not as good as Mazda. I think these seats, though, are as comfortable or more comfortable than the Mazda. And then I also have just a baby-sized sunroof up top. So if I hop inside the vehicle, and I turn on the accessory power, because when I start up the engine, you're probably not even going to hear the motor start up, you get pretty good MPG, 40 miles per gallon right now, average. A lot of this stuff isn't going to be relevant to you guys looking at the non-hybrids, but you still have some pretty good options in here. You can turn off a lot of your safety features right there. You don't have to go through the infotainment screen. And then look at the battery, the tire pressure, the all-wheel drive where the power is going. Yeah, so it's a pretty cool system. Otherwise, you can access everything through the screen. It also has wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, but the screen, kind of like the Mazda, kind of sticks up, which I know bugs some of you guys. I actually kind of like it. Because I used to own a Mazda, a Miata 23 Club, I'm used to having the scrolly dial to turn it, and it's weird to not have that for having this vertical screen. But ventilation, HVAC, all your options right there. You have some plugins, a 12 volt. The backup camera takes up the whole screen, but it is not, I'll have to start the car for this, but it is not a 360-degree camera. And then mine makes spaceship sounds because it's an EV mode right now when you're using it. And then you have electronic parking brake, which always engages when you put the brake on, which I love that feature because it's like a double whammy for supporting your vehicle so it doesn't roll back on the transmission. You have auto hold when you're at a stoplight, trail, eco sport, normal, EV mode. It's really fun to drive around in EV mode, even up to 25 to 35 miles per hour. You have some pretty big cup holders, and then you have a really big center console, bigger than the Mazda, but mine doesn't have a lifty tray. Nothing on the mirror, no garage door openers, no auto-dimming mirrors because of the trim level that mine is. I have a sunglass holder. I have the same controls for the power moonroof, and then I have LED lighting here. I have the extension right there, and then I also have LED lighting right here. But with that said, let's turn it off, and we will hop into the back of the Mazda. And into the back of the Mazda. Door actually opens really wide, probably about as wide as Subaru's. And I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the CX-30, maybe that's the Mazda that doesn't have the wide doors. But I almost forgot, or I think I did forget that these open so wide. Otherwise, door panel, it's nice, but it's the same theme as the front. Very more focused on high end than long-term durability and surviving kids and pets and stuff like this. This is definitely not as much of a pet vehicle as the Subarus are, where the seats are just made to be scratched up. But overall, you know, it's tight in here. Remember, this has 11 fewer cubic feet than what you got on even the Toyota. And I have barely any room in front of my knees. Do the seats recline? Ooh, yeah, they do, thankfully. I have a map pocket. I have the center down. Let's bring it up. And you'll notice on the Premium Plus, you get cup holders and you get some heated seats. And Mazda heated seats are fantastic. There's also some plugins. And most importantly, you have vents because people in the back seat need their vents. Windows are not huge. My spiky hair almost touches the ceiling, but not quite. And this is pretty comfortable. I can't really sprawl out, have bad posture, lean back, but I am feeling like I'm riding in something very luxurious. This feels like it hits above its class, to be honest. But let's hop into the Toyota and see how it compares. So the door panels on the back of the Toyota do not open as far, and that's a big knock on this platform. I don't know why Toyota couldn't figure that out and change out the hinges and the design. But even though this is enough for most people to easily get in, it's not easy to put a car seat in this car. It is very tight, especially if it's like a hybrid stroller car seat combo. But overall, it actually looks really nice. You have a map pocket. The materials back here, though, they're very thin. Pets would scratch right through that. Kids could probably kick through that. The back seats do recline as well as the Mazda. And you have the vents for the battery that's underneath the seat under there. But when I hop inside the back of my own Toyota, I have maybe just a tiny bit more room than I had on the Mazda. Ventilation, I have some plugins, and I have a center armrest down here as well. But because my trim level, it's about the same price because of the battery pack and the electric motors being hybrid, it doesn't have all the same creature comforts that you got in the Mazda. So ultimately, this whole video is my opinion and then just showing you the physics of what these cars offer. It's really cool to get to own and explore the platform that is the most popular in the world right now, being the RAV4. And it's really cool to drive Mazda's best vehicle. There's no surprise why this is Mazda's best-selling vehicle. It's fantastic. It's awesome. It's sporty. It looks good. It feels very reliable. I don't necessarily know about the cylinder deactivation and long-term reliability there, but it is a gem to drive and one that I highly recommend. But the Toyota probably will have better resale, probably easier to work on, or there's at least more dealerships to work on it, and it has Toyota reliability. So both of these vehicles, they really offer a lot while being competitors, while being 90% the same. It's the 10% of differences. Do you want better miles per gallon, whether it's a hybrid or non-hybrid RAV4? Do you want a better driving experience? Do you want to feel like there was a little bit more care put into the quality control of your Mazda? Both of these are awesome. Both of these offer a lot. What ultimately matters is that you guys are happy with your decision if you do consider buying one of these. So please go out and drive these. Drive another half dozen vehicles. Make sure that you make the right decision for you. And if you guys got anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below and read the comments. There's a lot of really good information from you guys down there, and things that I forget to mention I'll sometimes put down there. And huge thanks to Goody Motor for letting this vehicle review happen on their property, and for doing great work selling below MSRP, shipping all over the country. So check them out. I will link them below. Until next time, guys, take care.